Join Tarcia on this journey to discover the rest. Go.
Oh,
23andMe. Come on, let's go. You get these
23
DNA
and
results
me.
back and you sit
White
on it. Let me
lady.
guess. Let me guess.
No, I
Oh,
did
you
not.
didn't sit on it this
This is the
time.
first time I did not sit on it. I sat there on bated breath and hook like every day. But yeah, it was crazy. First person pops up, white lady. What? The most related person is a white lady.
How I can't even get my question. What was
Right.
the relation?
How, Sway? And of course, it gives you 23andMe is not accurate. They give you potential. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah. So what was the potential? Possible
possible,
what?
I think it was like second cousin. So I was like,
That's still kind of close though.
yeah, exactly.
Kind of close.
So I was like, hey, I'm an adoptee, don't really know anything. Maybe you can help. Sure. I'm looking down lineages. I have zero idea how we're related to, but I'm interested to look. She is now retired into this thing. We correspond back and forth for a couple of months. Then all of a sudden, um, it's Thanksgiving. So it does take a long time. Nothing's, no hits. I'm seeing people, but getting no messages from anybody. She's the
Mm-hmm.
only person that's a
Mm-hmm.
correspondence. So, like I said, that was Christmas time. By the time it probably came in, was, I don't know, maybe like Marchish. By Thanksgiving, there's crickets from this lady. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? I'm sending her messages. I'm not hearing anything. And the previous message that I had gotten was, I may have found a link to your maternal family. Don't get excited just yet.
And then she went ghost.
And then she goes ghost. So now my feelings are hurt. My
Mm.
abandonment issues is flaring up
Through the
like
roof.
through the roof. Okay. And I'm like, please, did I do something? Did I say something? And she was like, no, I was told to back off. And then when I say she shut down, this lady had even shared her ancestry
Treat with you.
with me. Everything was shut down. And I'm like, she found something.
Yeah.
She found something. A month later, I am in the process of buying a food truck and I get scammed. And I am trying to sift through these messages and handle this situation. And in that other message box,
Mm-hmm.
there's a little lady's face in here. So I pick on it because sometimes I get people asking me for jobs and stuff. So I'm like, you have an aunt that would like to speak to you that lives in Ghana. And I'm like, really, guys? Like, giving you all the money that I have. Like, I don't know what else you want from me. I text this lady back literally just like that.
Yeah.
I ain't got no aunt name, blah, blah, blah. Definitely don't know nobody in
In
Ghana.
Ghana.
Have a nice life. She was graciously, I think you might want to actually look into this.
Now, where are they messaging you at?
Facebook. So I was like, if I should look into it, is her sister alive? She goes, yes, and your brother. I told you all that I said to her. So when she said that, now I gasp
Yeah.
because I knew I had a sibling. I did not know I had a brother. So when I tell you about sensing, I always said I wanted an older brother. And
Mm.
I would have done anything for an older brother. So I had friends that were a little older than me, and that's why I always hung out with older guys because I longed
That
for an older brother. Now here I have one. So now I lose it. I said,
in Ghana?
does she? Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, now I need the number. She goes, she's waiting to hear from you if you want to talk to her. And I was like, well, what time is it? She goes, it doesn't matter. Call her. And she gave me her
Well, who is
WhatsApp
this
number.
person that's messaging you?
Ends up being, so it ends up being my maternal aunt,
Okay.
and that was her best friend. The only person she had ever told when she found out about me, too.
Okay, so now we're all on pins and needles. And then
Exactly.
you call, and what
So I
happens?
call, and this is how it all comes full circle. My lovely, lovely cousin that went ghost had found my aunt on Ancestry.
Okay.
And this caused my aunt and my birth mother to have their first ever conversation about my existence.
Mm,
My birth mother said to her sister, "That is my child. That is my issue. I will handle it my own way when I'm ready. Leave it alone." And so she relayed that, and that's
that's what made
where
her shut
everything
down.
stopped. Exactly. But at no point in time did my cousin tell my aunt what my name was. She knew it started with an M. So she searched for 3 whole years for me based upon M names. She thought my name was Megan. And she said one day she got on her knees and she was talking to her mom, and her mom said, "Morgan."
Yeah, we're gonna sit in that for a minute. Okay. Wow.
So she goes looking a little bit more, and boom, now she finds me. We talk on the phone for 4 whole hours.
Sure. About everything.
Yeah. And as much as I wanted to ask about my birth mother, when I tell you she was probably one of the most gracious people I have ever met,
Mm-hmm.
for someone who owes no one anything.
Yeah.
She was like, "I want you to know that I'm contacting you because I did not know about you. Had I
Wow.
known about you, I would have taken you." My birth mother and my aunt are 12 years apart, my aunt being her senior. And she actually took care of my brother when he was born for his first portion of his life.
Okay.
Um his he was hidden, the pregnancy was hidden as far as how he came about, the same as me. Um And so then when it came time, it was like, nope, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go adoption route. At that point in time, though, my aunt, she was off. She was living in another state. So she had no idea. It wasn't until my grandmother was on her deathbed that she confessed that I was a person
Mm-hmm.
and a part of their family. And she showed her a picture of
Mm.
me. Now, I tell you, this picture is not necessarily public. Now, I did commercials when I was a kid, so public, yes, but not necessarily. When this lady described this picture to me, I knew exactly the
What
picture she
picture
was
she's
talking
talking
about.
about?
And she told me that my mother's mother gave it to my grandmother. So now I got a whole lot of questions.
Tons.
Because how is everybody keep telling me they don't know nothing? They don't know nobody. They don't know like,
Tons. Because I have all the questions.
even in that non-identifying information, there was an excerpt that said that there was a 6-page letter that was written from my birth mother in there. They could not give it to me because it had too much identifying information in it,
Right.
but there were some excerpts that were in there.
And okay, so just for the listeners, let me
Hmm.
clarify. Your adopted family
Yes.
gave your birth family a picture.
Yes. That's what was in my paperwork, because in the letter supposedly from my birth mother, it said I have pictures, but I haven't been able to look at them because it's too painful
Mm-hmm.
to see. I do eventually want to be able to meet you, but I want you to be able to have the life that I don't feel like I could be able to give you. So that was the only excerpt bit that I got that was out of that 6-page thing.
Page
So when
thing.
I saw that, and I, of course, I run to my mom like, "Hey, mom, you sent pictures? Like, how you send pictures? Who did you send pictures to?" She was like, "Halt, I sent no pictures to nobody. I don't even know what you're talking about." And I'm like, "But this is what the social work, this is all paperwork from the social worker that apparently dealt with both of y'all in the agency. So you telling me the social worker is lying? I don't
Mm-hmm.
know what you're talking about." She goes, "I did not write a letter to your birth mother, and I did not provide any pictures." She goes, "I wouldn't do that because I told you, Morgan, I wasn't trying to have anybody come back. I wouldn't do that." So then I
It's your
went to my
grandma.
dad. I was like, Dad, did you give pictures? He was like, my dad was that guy, like hands, paperwork, all that.
Yeah.
I had nothing to do with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I was holding the baby. Like,
Yeah.
that's where my dad was. He was like, I was smitten over here. Paperwork, not me.
Yeah.
So he wasn't someone to ask. And unfortunately, at the time when I got this, my grandmother had passed. So now I'm not
Mm.
able to ask these questions. Actually, COVID had happened, and yeah, I wasn't unfortunately able to ask. So, um, yeah, it's been hard trying to deal with. There's
Somebody.
too many, and when I tell you the puzzles and the pieces, a lot of people, even through my life, even growing up, have actually been interwoven somehow into my birth story. Even a lady that
Mm.
I grew up with who adopted a child, she happens to be the childhood friend of the very man who introduced my birth parents.
That's wild.
Wild,
That's wild.
wild.
Why is your aunt in Ghana? What is
She
happening in Ghana?
it was fed up with the US.
Got it.
She is
Got it.
yes.
Say
She said I'm
less.
going home. She done been there a couple of times. Was like, you know what? In my ripe old age, I deserve to be treated like somebody's mama and auntie. So she is living her best life out there.
Got it.
She has always been that free spirit. So that jack of all trades, doing a lot, get up and just go
Just go.
spirit that I have. I ended up finding out I get that from her. I come from a long line of cooks. I had no idea. So now I'm in this space of super excited, hearing these things like, all right, my
Learning
aunt was a
about
cook, my
yourself.
grandmother was a
Yeah.
cook, my great grandmother was one as well. My grandmother was more into hospitality, but my great grandmother was a cook. So I'm like, okay, so now I get where I'm getting this from. My aunt is the one to just get up and go to St. Croix and open up a little food stand right outside of a strip club, because that's what she likes to do. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Just free spirit. And in talking to her, I was so full. It was the
So
first
tell
time
me.
that I felt connected. I just
So birth. So your brother. Your brother.
hmm hmm
What do you learn, and do you get a chance to speak to him as well?
I am not allowed to speak to him. So I am doing this now so that one, if he ever does get this, there's some information that he's going to be able to make some connections with, because he's
Why are you
not
not
going to be able.
allowed?
My birth mother refuses. So I will say this, especially for other adoptees, I need you to understand that regardless of the outcome of any search,
Yeah.
it really has nothing to do with you.
Mm.
Our searches really have nothing to do with us. And that abandonment, that low self-esteem, that self-worth, that space of not feeling like we belong, or where is that space? That has everything to do with them and what has been created, whether it's intentionally or not.
Mm.
But my birth mother is very well known. And so it has been more
Have you talked to her or just the
via
aunt?
email one time, and I was reprimanded very harshly through email
From her.
from her. And the
Can
only
you
reason why I got
share?
an email is because my aunt was like, I'm not, my name is Bennett, I ain't in it. You have something to say to her, tell her. Don't call me and tell me that.
Can you share what she said to you?
So I
In
will say
reprimand.
this. When I finally did connect, I have a amazing friend from college who was always extremely invested in helping me find birth family. And the
Mm-hmm.
only thing that kept me from that was really my mother's feelings and wanting to respect my mother. But eventually, once it got into this space, now I called her up and was like, yo, girl, I need some help. And when I tell you, she jumped to it. And I
Yeah.
was like, listen, I don't have any information. I just got off of this long, 3-4 hour, conversation. I don't have a whole lot of information, but this is what I've got. And I blurted out, some logistics. And she goes, okay, I'm gonna go on this site because she seems like this is where I can find her. So I was like, okay, fine. So she goes on this site and she's like, well, We only got 4 people to choose from that are black. So you ready? And I cracked out laughing. And I was like, okay, fine, shoot. And she shoots me over one picture, and we're like, nah, that's not it. She shoots me over another picture. She goes, nah, that's not it. And then she gets silent. And she goes, oh, Morgan.
She
And I was like,
found your
what? She goes,
face.
this is it. And I was like, really? She goes, yeah. And she sends it over. I felt nothing.
Had you been
Nothing.
reprimanded by email yet?
No.
That hadn't happened yet.
No, I hadn't been reprimanded by anyone that. But I felt absolutely nothing. And I was so disappointed. Because I don't look. I spent
Underwhelming
30
experience.
something years
Very
looking in
underwhelming
every woman's face
to find
to
out.
find out I don't look
I
like
don't
this
even look like
woman.
you. I can attest to that. I have that exact
And
same
my
experience.
heart just was it sank. And I'm like, okay, well, at least I got an answer. Like my son asked me a question.
Yeah, I can tell
I
you who
got
I
an
don't look
answer.
like.
Exactly. I got an answer and then some. At least I do have an actual familial reference now. I got a little bit more, information that
Yeah,
I probably would have gotten. And so, okay, fine. So now I actually have a name. So I call the aunt back and I was like, okay, I know you don't have to say yes or no. You ain't even got the, I almost wanted to be like, blink twice if
right.
it's yes. You know what I mean? Because
Just
I wanted to be respectful and she
right.
was being respectful. But I was like, is her name this? And she was like, yes. So by that point in time, I knew who she was. And yes, I
Are you
stalked
not even
her.
shocked that she's well known?
No, I knew that too. And it was again, it was something that was inside and it was a joke that I used to always joke with my best friends back in the day. They used to say, watch your mom is Oprah. And we used to die. She's not Oprah, but like, oh, can you imagine what would that be like to have to deal with a mom like Oprah? So, and it carried through middle school, college. All of my friends would always laugh and joke and say, what if your mom was famous? What if your mom was well known? What if your mom? And
Wow.
so I kind of had always braced myself for something like that. So then to find out that she is known, it does run in a lot of circles. And I'm like, oh, shoot, she could have run in a lot of circles with some of my friends now. So now I'm calling up friends
Mm.
like, where were you? Because now I'm stalking, social
Yeah.
medias and I'm looking, trying to get as much information as I possibly can. And now I'm like, well, how do I contact this lady? Because I know my aunt isn't going to help. I don't think I would ask her that.
Yeah.
So
So let me ask you this
I,
though. Hold on, let me
what?
ask you this. Did you get a chance to connect with any other part of the family on this
At that
side?
point in time, no.
No.
It was
Okay.
just her. It was
Okay.
just her. And
Because
of
I'm like,
course,
where
when
the
I told
cousins at with the T?
exactly. But what I found out on that maternal side is it's very small. So everyone else, so what it did allow me to do on 23andMe is realize everybody else was either on my paternal side or what I eventually found out later on was my my birth mother's father's side. So whatever that means, her
Okay.
paternal side. So my maternal other side, not her mom's, but
Mm-hmm.
her father's side.
Her
So those are the
father's
people that
maternal
were
side.
coming in. Exactly. So her father, I was like, my birth mother's father's stuff was coming through, and then my birth father's stuff was coming through.
Because you know I was going there. Because
Exactly.
you know I was going.
Girl, but can I just tell you, never still in any of this had he crossed my mind.
Really?
Yes, no, I never thought about a dad until about 2, 3 years ago. 100% honest. And like I said, I started at 25. Things started revving up at around 33,
Yeah.
and it wasn't until 30. Yeah, 25. 33 is when it started revving up. By 35, things really started happening. I was pregnant with my second son,
Okay.
and now I get scared. That innermost, I'm the second child. Do I have enough love for my second child?
Hmm.
How am I going to be able to deal with all of this? And I felt some type of way because I kind of was working on my husband's timeline more than the one I would have preferred because my boys are almost 10 years apart. And I was just getting my life back. I had just started doing some things. I could move differently. And now
Yeah.
we having to have a
Now
conversation
I
about
gotta
me being
pack up the
strapped down
whole
to a baby
house
again. Like, yeah,
just to leave the
exactly.
house. Yeah.
Exactly. I just got outside. Now you just put me back on the porch. Like, how? So that all of that was going on. And this is when now my aunt surfaces. So all of this is kind of going on out
Okay.
at the same time. Um, so I send an email.
Oh wait,
So I'm,
hold
like I
on.
said,
I'm pulling you back. Hold
what?
on. The reprimand.
Yes,
What you
that's
can't.
where I'm
Oh,
getting
you're
to the
going there.
reprimand. Yes, that's where I'm
Okay.
going to, right?
Okay.
So I send an email um from the most, I guess, most, it seemed like most inconspicuous email or way for me to contact her.
Okay.
Um, and I just was like, grace and peace. My name is Morgan. I believe that you may be my birth mother. I gave the name that was given to me at birth. That was somehow in my non-identifying information. So even coming to terms with the fact that I had another name is a lot.
Girl, you got a lot of information.
I know. Like I said, God has looked out in a lot of interesting
Cause
ways in this
yeah.
whole thing.
Okay, get back to
So
this.
and I guess it was so that there was maybe no question. And that's why, so when I put it in there, I wanted to put enough
For
information
her,
that
yeah.
she knew I wasn't lying and I wasn't trying to scam, but still if someone else read it, it wasn't giving up too much
Right.
either. But I was like, I just wanted to reach out to let you know, one, I appreciate what you did. Um, I couldn't have asked for a better family upbringing, life. So one, thank you. It could not have been easy. And, as I sit here now as a mother and pregnant with another child, I go back to what you might have felt
Mm-hmm.
at that time. And I just want you to know that I don't hate you, that I'm not angry with you. And I hope at some point in time that we could be able to talk because I just have some questions I would like to be able to answer. And then I said, P.S. I'm looking forward to possibly having a relationship with my brother should he choose. That was it.
And
So I felt like that was nice and
that was
succinct.
nice.
And
It
it was,
was.
you know what I
It
mean?
was. I agree.
It was nice.
Yes.
Dearest Morgan, I would love nothing more than to talk to you, but now is not the time. It is extremely inappropriate that you have chosen to tell my story when you don't even know it. It is mine to tell. When the time is right, I will contact you. Name. Second email. P.S. Do not contact my brother's name at all. Now, mind you, that email came 2 years after I sent it. So I waited from the time I sent that email, which was probably about 2 months after I had finally, gotten contact with my biological aunt. So I even sat on that for a minute because I didn't know what I would say. It was one of those, if I got a crumpled up paper, I probably would have had a mountain over me
Yeah.
before I would have, sent it in the mail type of thing.
Two
And then 2 years,
years.
2 years. And the only reason why I got that email is because I went on social media to my brother's social media page and I sent a message that just said, please contact me. I have some information that I think you might need. And then it was silence and it was, some time. And I'm like, he's very active on social media. So this makes zero, and because he too is very now well known. So I'm over here like, there's no reason why you should be not like, this is checking your DMs, bro. Like, what, you know what I mean? You don't know
Yeah.
what's going on. Like, there should be some kind of response. Nothing. So then I sent another one and it was just like, I would like to have a private conversation. I believe I may be your sister. When I sent that,
Is when she was like,
message.
"Hey, girl."
She called her sister and said, "Hey, sis, I thought I told you to leave this alone." Blah, 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 blah. And my aunt was like, "I can't hear you. I can't hear you. You have something to say to her? Say it to her. That you said that was your daughter. That's your daughter. You go talk to her." And that was what she said. Yeah. So talk about rejection
Oh, for
again.
sure, for sure.
Now with all of this going on, I'm like trying to talk to my mom about it, and she ain't trying to hear nothing. First, the aunt was a scam.
She's about to tell you anything to make herself feel better. You know that's what's happening,
Yeah,
right?
but no, but wait. When I got that non-identifying information, she was like, "Morgan, that's all a lie." It was.
Right.
It was.
It was all
So
made up.
now I'm sitting back over here as I'm still now talking in the whole nine. As I'm starting to talk to the aunt, now I'm pulling bits and pieces out of this. So, no, that's not true. My
These
grandmother was
adoption
not a natural
agencies.
redhead. My grandmother was not even a history teacher. I just told you what was my grandmother. She was in
She was
hospitality.
in
She was a cook.
hospitality. They made up a nice story. Well, how'd your adoptive mom know that that wasn't true?
She'll probably tell you the Holy Spirit told her. But I really don't know. I don't know. If it's not the Holy Spirit, she knows. But she's not going to tell me that it really wasn't as closed as we think that it is.
Okay, because when you were telling me all that, I'm like, that's a lot of information. But now it makes sense. Somebody drummed up a good story.
You know who that someone is? My grandmother. So my grandmother's dying bed confession was
Adoptive
guilt.
grandmother or
Yes, no,
adoptive grandmother, birth grandmother.
birth grandmother. She confessed guilt on deathbed for orchestrating my
Adoption.
adoption. So, in the midst of now me calling my mom to tell her about how my birth mother is all of these things, I still don't understand why we're having this conversation. There are so many adoptees out here that don't even want to know. I don't know why you feel like you need to be doing this. Da 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 da. Now, mind you, this was all at a time. Again, there's a lot of stuff that was going on. Um, my best friend's father had just passed. He was like another father to me. And I had run into the lady who subsequently I find out grew up with the very man that introduced my birth parents. So, like I said, I spoke to her and I was just like, "Hey, what do you think about?" I've been thinking about either doing a podcast or writing a book about adoption. And she goes,
Mm.
"I think it's a fabulous idea.
Mm-hmm.
Call me. Let's talk about it." So we were talking about it. She goes, "I think this is great." She goes, "Morgan, I can't begin to tell you how much you've even helped me in understanding some things, how to be able to talk to my child, all these other kind of." So she's like super excited. So now she's got me pumped up. I'm
Yeah.
again, what do? I go to call my mom.
Girl, when
Mom,
you gonna
all
learn?
right.
Stop
I'm
that.
Exactly. I'm again, but this is that wanting, that
You
mom
want it.
hunger, and
You
that
want
want,
it.
like I said, I never got the satisfaction from her. So then I always felt like I needed to prove myself. But then it's like, well, when something really monumental happens, who am I supposed to run to? That's who we run to. We run to our moms.
Yeah. But then at
Because
some
for
point you
me, friends
gotta
were always fickle.
but at some point you gotta protect yourself from what you already know is
Exactly. But I'm
coming.
not even
But you're
realizing,
not there yet.
when I say exactly
You're
not
not
there
there
yet.
yet.
But girl, when I tell you this conversation put me all the way there, because it was just like the ending was, you know what? You've got this problem that you need to deal with. And obviously, I can't help you with it. Since it's so important to you, why don't you go find your father? And I was like, well, that's pretty much what the plan has been.
Right.
Because, mind you, the beginning of that year, New York State had decided now to open for closed adoptees to get any kind of paperwork, original
Information.
paperwork, at least one time. So I sat on that. January, I want to say they allowed it. I didn't even put in the application until like November. Then something happened. I think COVID happened and I heard nothing. So
Yeah.
now I'm calling to follow up and they're like, we don't even have your paperwork. You're going to have to pay again. Da, 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 da. And I was like, I'm not trying to hear none of that. Like, no, I've waited all of this time and y'all keep telling me. This is the conversation I had before I called my mom
And
with the adoption people, right? Trying to get
you're
where's my
like,
paperwork.
let me call my mom.
So exactly. So I'm calling my mom, telling her all this, like, okay, so I'm gonna do this book. I just talked to these adoption people. Da, 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 da. Why don't you go find your real dad? Okay, that's what I'm doing. There was another microaggression that was said, and my mom was the one who would say things, and I don't think she really realized. Well, she might have how it hurt, but I would do something and she would be just like, I don't know where you got that from, or you surely didn't get that from me. And those kind of remarks would
Yeah.
definitely sever some things or make me feel like there was something
Something
wrong.
wrong.
So I'm doing this quest now to prove or to find out what's
There
wrong
is
with me because
nothing
my mom
wrong
keeps
with
trying to
me.
tell me there's something wrong with me. So now let me go find out what's wrong with me.
Mm. So birth dad.
Yes. Well, wouldn't you know that whatever she said, I was like, you know what, mom,
Are we
I
done
can't have this
now?
conversation anymore.
Okay, now we're done.
I said, yeah. I was like, I can't have this conversation anymore. I said, if you and my birth mother want to go play in the same sandbox, y'all are more.
Have at it.
Exactly. That's exactly what I said. I said, have at it. That's literally exactly what I said. I was like, have at it. I was like, but I can't do this with you anymore. Well, don't tell me that you love me. I'm like, what?
Girl, what?
She was like, don't tell me that you love me. You said you love me, but you're not going to have it. If this is what your love is, then I don't want it. I don't want your love. You can keep it. And so I was like, okay, cool. And I hung up the phone. Now, this is not the first time that there has been an explosive kind of,
Yeah, but that was probably a little different.
no.
No. So we've been
No,
doing
because
this.
I told you, fine, you don't want me to ask questions at the doctor's appointment. I'm never coming to a doctor's appointment again.
Okay.
My
Yeah,
mom
you're
is
right.
an
You're right.
extremist. She takes
You're
it
right.
from one extreme to the other. So it was like, okay, fine. But I'm expecting, yeah, maybe about a month to go by and then she'll call me again, whatever. No big deal, right? Well, no, she runs and tells all of her friends, which are like extra moms, aunts, all of these things. So now my inbox and my phone is ringing with, you told your mom to go F herself and da 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 da. No, I did not say that. She was getting to a place where she was again being disrespectful. She was saying some stuff that was crossing too many lines. And so I stopped the conversation before she got to a place where she said something
And that she could
that
not
she
come
was
back
going to
from.
regret.
Right.
Exactly. And so that's why I was like, okay, you know what? And my dad taught me that. That was his way of also trying to combat. When they got combative, he was the one who taught me, like, Morgan, you don't always have to feed into stuff. Sometimes you
Mm-hmm.
be the one to
Be the one to
stop it.
stop it.
Exactly. And so that was what I was just like, fine, let me, channel my inner dad. And that's what I was doing. Let's just stop the conversation. Like, I
Right.
love you, but I'm not going to
But
do
I'm not going to
this.
do this with you. So how did you
And that
find? I'm
was
sorry. Go
enough
ahead.
for her to be done. When I tell you I have not spoken to my mom in about 3 years, she only speaks to my oldest son. She does not speak to my youngest son. And she will tell my oldest son, well, he doesn't have a cell phone, so how am I supposed to call him? And my oldest is like, you call my mother's phone. Something dire happened recently, and she called my son's phone and asked him to ask me, would I speak to her? You a
She's
whole
doing a lot.
grown woman. Like,
She's
I'm gonna
doing a
need you to
lot.
stop using my child because
And
in a minute you about to lose access to
to
him
him,
too.
and we're done giving her energy right now in this
Right.
space.
So,
So
exactly. So
birth
that
dad.
ended up being done. Now, wouldn't you know that that night after I hung up the phone, I could not sleep. I tossed and I turned, and I called
Hmm.
that very friend who helped me find who my
That's who
birth
you
mother
should have been
was.
calling.
That exactly. So I called her and was like, her name is Stephanie. I was like, Steph, her birthday this weekend. I was like, listen, I can't sleep. I got some more information for you, but now we about to find dad. She goes, give it to me. And What I had found is after we left this white family member,
Mm-hmm.
the next one finally trickled down about a year or so ago. And her name happened to be the same name that my birth name was. So I froze. Then when I Facebook stalked her kids look like mine. And I flipped out. So I sent her a message and I'm like, listen, I'm sorry. I need some help, but this, that, and the third. She was like, I don't know how you fit into this grand scheme of things. My parents divorced. I don't really know too much as far as my dad's side of the family. I can tell you what I know as far as my mom's side of the family. But based upon genealogy, I think you might be related on my dad's side.
Mm.
And that's where we left it. And I haven't heard from them. So again, I'm like left with just bits and pieces of information. I called her and I was like, listen, I got this name, and I know that these people died. That's all I know. So we're combing through and she's finding the same stuff that I had found,
Mm-hmm.
and we're not puzzled. And then 4 o'clock in the morning, she goes, Morgan, I think we're looking at this differently. Why don't we look at the women? Because maybe your dad is a son of someone who died, not someone who maybe died. And like, just look, let's sift through the family
Got you.
members
Yeah.
in here more. So I'm like, okay, fine. So I'm looking through and I'm like, sifting through names. I see a name and I'm like, well, this person looks like they might be on Facebook and they're young enough to be on Facebook. Let me send a message and maybe they can help. This is like 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. So like I said, we're sifting through all of this. She was like, try these out. We go to sleep, wake up 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. I send this message. 10 minutes later, I get a message back, call me, with a number. All I did was say a message like, hi, I'm an adoptee and there's a possibility that I might be somehow related to you. Can you help me? That's all I said. Call me. I call him. And of course I start rambling. So this is, and he was like, pause. Who are you? And he just wanted to know who I was. And that was the first time anyone had ever asked me who I was. And I was like, I don't know. I said, I'm a mom. I'm a chef. I told him all the things I did, but who
But
I
who
was,
are
I don't
you?
know. I'm still trying to figure that out. And he goes, all right, lay it on me. And I laid him everything that I had from the non-identifying information.
Yeah.
I laid him everything that I had at least gotten from 23andMe. He goes, I am so sorry. And I did tell him about the email between my birth mother and I. He goes, I am so sorry that this is happening to you. He goes, no one deserves to be treated like this. No one deserves to be out
Just trying to
of
figure out who they
information like
are.
this.
Yeah.
And he was like, you know what? He goes, I cannot promise you anything. He goes, but please just give me a week. He goes, send me your number. Because we talked through Facebook. So I
Mm-hmm.
didn't actually call, I called him through Facebook. I didn't actually
Got you.
call the number. Um, and so he was like, give me your number and give me a picture. So I sent him this picture. I sent him my number. He goes, give me a week. I kid you not, by 6 p.m. he called me. He goes, I found your dad. And he goes, he's charging his phone. I'm gonna let you know right now that he it's gonna take him some time, but he cannot wait to talk to you. And then he started crying and he goes, so I hope you're ready. And I still to this day, Rodney is probably one of the most amazing men I have ever met in my entire life. The amount of love that came through the phone from that man was astounding. And that was the first time, and I'm not taking anything away from my aunt at all, but that was the first time that I felt loved, I felt seen. And so I called him. He said give him an hour. And at the exact hour
He
I called
called.
him and I said hello, and he wept. And he goes, my girl. And he goes, I have prayed for this for 36 years. He
So
goes, I have only asked God to allow me to live long
long
enough
enough to
to
watch.
know that you are okay. My father did not know when I was born. He did not know if I was okay. And he has been waiting since I was 16 years old because he did not know that my adoption was closed for me to contact him. Little did I know that also the very day that this happened, my birth certificate came in the mail. the things I was fighting for. And I'm glad that no, my dad, the paperwork had come in the same day that I was on the phone with my girlfriend. And that's what made me call her, because when I looked at the adoption records, there was a name that was up there. And when I called my aunt and I was like, I know who my dad is, she busted out laughing. And I stopped and I was like, why are you laughing? And I was like, what is so funny? And she was like, that's not your dad. She goes, that's the guy I told you I used to babysit, I used to babysit your mom with. That's like a family friend. That's not your dad. And she busted out laughing again. And then she goes, I'm about to call him. So she called the man that was name was on my birth certificate to tell him that his name was on my adoption records. So no name on my birth certificate, but on the adoption records, there was another name. So now I'm not supposed to find who my father was. So now I'm over here on the phone with this man, having to tell him that he's not on my birth certificate, that he's not on any kind of birth records, that my birth was closed, which is why he's
Mm-hmm.
never heard from me. He goes, Morgan,
Mm-hmm.
I have been stalking your birth mother's page for the last 10 years, hoping that I could get a glimpse of you. And I was trying to figure out why I only see your brother.
Is that his son too?
It is not, which I thought he was. So I found out all the lies from my father. My father sifted out all of the lies. As a child in the I know, what I knew was I was a secret. I knew that my birth was a shame, and all I hoped was that I was wanted. So the very things I would have hoped that I would have heard from my birth mother is what my father told me. And those were the first things that he ever told me. He goes, Morgan, I wanted you. I fought for you. I did everything I possibly could from a non-married man in 1985 that I could possibly do to have you. He goes, but it was completely out of my hands. So I sat back and I told your birth mother and I told your grandmother. Before I burned all, he was like, I was ready to just burn it all down. He was like, when she's of age, give her my number. So he goes, I thought you just didn't want to know.
He had no idea they put you up for adoption.
No, he did.
Oh, he didn't know that.
He did. So the actual birth story, according to him, was that my birth mother is pregnant. They had just kind of met. It was a very random thing.
Mm-hmm.
Again, he was an artist. My father was an artist, and he worked for American Airlines at the time, and was also a food critic. So he was out doing a lot of different things, and ran in the same circles with my aunt and a couple of other people. So that's how the two of them met. My dad was like, listen, have spent my entire life trying to figure out how I would tell you the story of how your mom and I met and everything else. He goes, now that I know that heifer done lied, didn't even put me on the birth certificate, closed the adoption and the whole 9 yards. He goes, I'm going to tell it like it is.
Spilling the tea.
Exactly. He was like, no, we were holding hands 10, 15 minutes in the back seat after we done met. I'm going to let you know what it is. He was living down in DC. She was, upstate, a little further upstate, and they would go back and forth. 1 weekend you see, one week you didn't.
Yeah.
And he was like, and I'm gonna be honest, he was like, it wasn't like you really knew that she even had a kid. He goes, I knew she had a kid. And eventually he started spending more time at my grandmother's house than even my birth mother was.
Mm-hmm.
So he was in with the family. All of a sudden, he gets ghosted. And he's calling her like, hey, do you want me to come see you this weekend? No. You want to come down? I'll bring it down. No. I'm gonna come. No. Did I do something? No. Are you pregnant? No. Well, he don't know what the heck is going on. 5, 6 months later, he gets a phone call and it's my grandmother on the other end. Like, yeah, so she's pregnant and what you plan on doing about it? And he's like, well, I'll be on the next plane smoking. And that's exactly what he did. He said he got a plane ticket and he flew. And he said by the time the sun rose, he goes, I was on the other side of the door. I knocked on the door. He goes, I was greeted by your grandmother. And I had to spend 2 hours talking to her and her husband before I even saw your mother. And they pretty much told me she done did this before. We didn't even know about the first one. We
Mm-hmm.
not doing this again. And so we've already decided we're putting the baby up for adoption. And he was like, Yeah, no. You're not just like, that's like just dropping a baby off in front of the
Yeah.
firehouse. Like, we don't do that. Like, no, I'll take her. No, you're not. No, I will take. You know what? Forget it. Let me talk to her. So now she's upstairs. She comes downstairs. He goes, Morgan, I saw you before I saw her. He goes, she was huge. He goes, I put my hand on her belly, and he goes, and you kicked me. He said, then he looked her in her face and said, what are we going to do? And she looked at him and said, I've got nothing for you.
Just wow. It
And he
always
was
amazes me that the birth father, especially back in the day, and especially a black man, had zero rights.
nothing, nothing. And he
Nothing.
said, Morgan, and he was very well connected. He talked to senators. He talked to, like, he went up the government chain. How do I get my child?
And nothing.
He goes, Morgan, I could get nothing. And he goes, and that was the last time. He goes, that was the last time I saw your mother. That was the last time I spoke to your mother. And he goes, I did get a phone call. And the only phone call was your grandmother on the other end that just said, she's here. Because I didn't know, he goes, I didn't know if you were a boy or girl. I know nothing. But I just got a phone call that said, she's here, and then hung up. That's all my dad got. So he's been looking his whole life, but he's like, I don't even know what to look for. I
Yeah,
don't know what
yeah.
month she was born in. I don't know where she was born. I know nothing. And he had people that was willing to help.
But it had
But he goes,
nothing.
no, Morgan. He goes, I want you to know. He goes, I told the people that were important about you. He goes, so I want you to know you were never a secret. He goes, I told my mother about you. I told my father about you. I told both of my grandmothers. He goes, my grandmothers prayed. And every time I would walk through the door, my grandmothers would ask me, have you heard about that baby yet? He goes, my grandmothers and his mother actually had just passed not too long ago. And that, for me coming up, was gut wrenching because I look like her. I look like my dad.
Yep, you found your face.
Exactly.
You found
And
your face.
he, like, even now, he was like, he just looks at me. He is the most doting man I have ever, besides my actual dad. Like, I lucked up with two dads that were just
Just smitten over
absolutely,
you.
but not, yes, 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 yes. God knew what I needed as far as love. And he provided that in the two men that I've had as fathers. And like, I can't be grateful enough now. And it's crazy, I am my father's only child,
Okay.
so he does not have any more. But that is not to say that he has not fathered other children. He has a partner that he has been with for the last 30 years. And together they, I believe, raised like three children and then turned around and they have those children. So I am co-parenting with my birth father with children that are literally the age of my
Of
own.
your own. Wow.
Yeah. And then we're like siblings. And it's a very interesting dynamic.
For sure.
I still grapple with the level of interaction. I wouldn't change anything for the world. But there was a very hard time where I'm like, I didn't want a relationship with him. There was nothing wrong with him. I just didn't want a relationship with him because I didn't want a relationship with anyone. I had
You said
questions.
that
I
long
wanted
time
you
ago. Yeah, you
to answer
said.
some questions, and that was it. So now I've got this whole person that's like, Morgan, you just came in my life and you can't go nowhere.
How you feel about that?
It's lovely, but it also feels very trapping
Hmm.
because adoption allows you to be very fluid. You have no attachments really. Or the attachments that we form are very
I get it.
toxic
And
at
they can
times.
be at times. Yeah, they can be.
Exactly. So and I was like, and that's what I'm realizing. I had no idea the trauma or what that could bring in that. You know what I mean? I
Mm.
so again, I love the relationship that I have with him.
Mm-hmm.
His, if nothing else, the partner that he's come with has filled that mom space immensely. Um this woman owes me nothing.
Yeah.
She has known I've existed their entire relationship as
Yeah.
well. So she was just as eager to get to know me as he was. But the protective dad that he was like, you've got to give her some time Because I was like, get to know her for what? Like, I'm still over here in my mother
Trying to,
wound,
yeah,
my double
your
mother wound.
double,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Who the heck? I don't need some other woman. But when I tell you the patience that she has had, the
Mm.
space, and when I say the safe space, I have never been able to be in front of a woman as vulnerable and myself before and be so accepted, to be so loved. And she's a mother, but she's also a friend. And
Let me
I could tell her like anything.
let me tell you what I love about what you're doing right now, because there are people out there that want to do the search and reunion thing,
Yeah.
and they don't know, like we never know. And I'm so
Yeah.
glad that you're vulnerable enough to say, well, you know what, this is what happened when I went looking for my birth mom, and it was ugly. But then over here, I found my
Right.
birth dad, and this is what it's been. And even though I don't quite know how to what to do with that just yet,
Right. Right.
but it's okay to take it
Yeah.
one day at a time and figure it out, and it's
That is
okay.
exactly what it is. And there are times where, I go and I don't talk to him. And it'll be funny because he'll send me like bat signals, be like,
You
hey,
all right over there,
are you all
right?
right over there? Exactly, exactly.
So I want you
And
to I want you
mhm,
to do something for me though.
yeah,
I want you to do something because you said something that stuck with me, and so now I'm around you, around this final corner. I
okay.
want you to, on purpose, speak to that brother that you have not been able to speak to. If by chance he were to see this, what message do you want him? What do you want to relay to him?
As a doula, I have learned how spiritual birth work is. And when you start looking at actual biological makeup, the first child leaves an imprint with the second. So I have a part of my brother in me, and that is what is yearning for that connection. I don't know who he is, and I don't really care what baggage he brings to the table. There is a reason why I birthed two boys and he birthed two girls, or didn't birth them, but has them
Okay.
biologically.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that. There is a reason why I'm doing the work, because we didn't have generations that were willing to do it.
Do the work.
And so I'm here as your sister, as your partner, for us to work this out together. This is a heavy load, and he has daughters. And if we are going to change the trauma that is in this lineage, it's for us to do together. So the relationship is up to us. It has absolutely nothing to do with our birth mother at all. This is between him and I. And I'm open, I'm here, and I've loved you my whole life without even knowing that he existed. I'm excited. So this is something that I'm gladly sitting on,
Yes.
because I have learned that everything in its timing. I could not have rushed the meeting of my birth father at all. There is a blessing in the pain and the ugliness of how my journey has started, and the beauty and the love that it's ended in.
Hmm.
So I refuse to bask in the rest of that. I choose to just sit in the fact that it might look like one thing on one end, but
Yeah.
on the other, I have gained so much to be able to sit at tables with people who look like me, who love me, who don't care about nothing. Like, I
Nothing.
could just be like, yeah, exactly. Yep. That's us.
I get that.
For me to watch my kids walk hand in hand with family that they resemble, to watch my birth father hug my oldest son, and it's still mind blowing when the three of us take pictures. It's this,
See
it's
all
like
that.
three of
Yeah.
the same. Yes,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
is. So yeah,
I'm
I'm excited. And for him to also know, because I know some information that he doesn't know too. So it's going to be some stuff for us to walk through, but just know I'm here to walk through it with you.
I'm so glad that you got a chance to say that, and I pray that he sees this, and I pray that there's a positive outcome. And I want to
Yes.
thank you so much for being so vulnerable and
Thank
telling your
you.
story and coming here and speaking, and then nobody asked you to make me tear up.
Thank you. My
I'm gonna
dad
tell
does it
you.
every time. He does it every
I'm gonna tell
time.
you when we turn these cameras off. I'm gonna tell you why. I'll tell you when you turn the cameras off why, what
Okay.
that was about. But I
Yes.
appreciate you so much, and keep doing the work. Keep doing
No,
the
I
work.
appreciate you. This is a space that I think we've all longed for.
Hmm.
And it takes a lot to be bold enough to provide a space for us to do this, because you see amongst a lot of the rest of our community the nasty comments and uninformed things that people say when it comes to our experiences, the
Yeah.
system, the whole nine yards. So I appreciate you for what you're doing. I appreciate you giving us a space, especially as Black women, to be able to share, and to be vulnerable and to talk about the things that we don't really get to talk about. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
what it means to be adopted and married, to be adopted and a parent, like all of these things. There's
All the
so much to
things. So
unpack in
much.
all of those things. And this is, like you said, it's a day by day journey. So,
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad to be on it with you, to
Yeah.
have someone to rub elbows with and encourage.
Absolutely.
Um, and you keep up the good work as well.
Thank you so much. And on that note, bye, family. Hang on,
Bye.
Morgan.
Yes.
Journey, journey on, journey, journey on. You need a pie, what they get good? Oh yeah, what this the one?